We all know that Manchester United's problems won't be fixed overnight. Man United require a rebuild from the ground up. But despite Ruben Amorim stating it wasn't a great result, there are some bright spots to build from. Today, we're going to go through the tactical lessons that we learned from Amorim's first game in charge. If you are new around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video. But anyway, let's get this party started. The first thing we learn is Ruben Amorim's possession structure will work in the Premier League. We spoke quite a lot about Amorim's structure in possession, especially building out from the back, moving from the 3-4-3 structure to basically a 4-2-2. That being the centre-back moves into defensive midfield and kicks one of the central midfielders into an attacking midfield spot. One of the attacking midfielders moves into a centre-forward position, creating a 4-2-2 structure, the meta in European football. So taking a look at that structure against Ipswich Town, we can clearly see Manchester United building with their centre-back in the midfield line. There's good stagnation between that player, Matthias de Ligt, and Casemiro. But Manchester United do really well to draw on the Ipswich press. Why this shape is so successful is not only does it overload the centre of the pitch with 4 narrow players plus 2 strikers to pin the opposition's backline, but it's got width with both of the wing-backs or full-backs in this system. So Manchester United building out from Andre Onana. First, what they want to do is they want to coax Ipswich pressing structure. Ipswich lined up in a bit of a 4-4-2 pressing structure with one central midfielder usually jumping on the attacking midfield line and the other one dropping a little deeper. So as Manchester United built out from their wide centre-backs, they recycle the ball to the other side. We can already see that they've coaxed in the attacking midfielder and striker in Ipswich system. We see the ball recycled through Andre Onana out wide to Matsarawi at right centre-back. The easy ball, the easy progression is of course to the wing-back and Mad Diallo out wide. What I like about this is the positioning of Bruno Fernandes. Maybe not in this point of the play, but making his move from a central area out wide. I think as United kind of get how Ruben Amorim wants his teams to play, we'll probably see the attacking midfielder more in a position near where the referee is in this shot, but more on that later on. As the ball is shipped wide, not only have you pulled Ipswich shape one way, you've then exposed them on the other side. The ball then from Amad Diallo out wide is fantastic. Of course, we mentioned before, Bruno Fernandes is untracked. He's in a bit of a space in between the opposition central midfielder and their defensive line. So it makes it easy for United to coax the Ipswich left back out, draw him in, then play behind him. Of course, then Amad's dynamic element, him being a wing back, comes into fruition. Amad was a player we didn't quite look at being a good wing back for Ruben Amorim, but quite frankly, he was fantastic. And reminds me a lot of Quenda at Sporting Lisbon, a right-footed winger that's been converted to a wing-back by Amorim. Of course, with Amad's ability to carry and drive through creates this goal. Not only has he got that pace, the close control, but a bit of strength to ride the challenge as well. Amad is a top-quality footballer that could explode in this position. Not only that, in the final third, I love how United are loading the box. Not only with the 2 forwards, as we mentioned before, in that 4-4-2 shape, you've got the attacking midfielder in Garnacho and Rashford both making runs into the box, but also the far side wing-back in Diogo Dalot. This allows Amad to get his head up, play a lovely cross with his weaker right foot to the near post for Rashford to slot home. A brilliant move that comes from Amorim's possession shape out of the back, which is very impressive considering he only really joined Man United last week. So moving to that other point we mentioned previously, again, this is just a tactical shot, but where I want you to focus on is the positioning of the referee. That for me is where Bruno Fernandes' position should be in build-up in the long term. Yes, he makes the goal by moving wide, but I'd argue in terms of, moving the opposition numbers around, I think pulling into a little bit more of a narrow position and then moving wide is more of what we saw at Sporting Lisbon. Take this goal against Manchester City, with Sporting building out from the back, having Pedro Goncalves taking up an inside position and then moving wide to allow the wing-back to drive inside and finish off the move. But this is something that United will build to under Ruben Amorim. But not only did we see Manchester United carve Ipswich apart in the first minute of the first half, but we also saw it in the first minute of the second half. But it came after a tactical switch from Amorim. Amorim in that second half moved Garnacho to the right-hand side and Bruno Fernandes back to the left-hand side. This gave Manchester United a little bit more of a dynamic element in the inside right channel, allowing Garnacho to receive in those positions. But what we saw from a possession perspective, of course, was a slight switch in midfield as well. Casemiro sitting more on the right side of the double double pivot, again being pushed high, Garnacho moving into that striker position, and Matheus de Ligt once again moving into that advanced area. This allowed Manchester United to play through the opposition with speed and pace, and credit to Manchester United's technical right side, something that I feel was really underutilised in this game. So let's take a look at that with Casemiro in left central midfield and Eriksen in right central midfield. Because of the nature of the press from Ipswich Town, with the left midfielder jumping quite high and almost creating a front three, there was a bit of space to the right hand side of him. And we could see Manchester United once again building. The first thing is they're going to draw in the first line of pressure from Omari Hutchinson. Then they're going to give the attack width, creating space for Christian Eriksen. You can see Sami Smodic's probably 5 metres away from Eriksen, giving the Danish midfielder enough time to take a touch, turn and then play forward. But also have a look at Alejandro Garnacho's position. He's in a high area, but he's also drawing the opposition in with him to allow that space for Rashford to drop off the line and lay off the ball. Really good bit of play from Manchester United. But also notice the narrowness of Manchester United's sort of left attacking midfielder, shall we say, Bruno Fernandes. This allows him to pull the wing-back's marker in Wes Burns into a narrow position, opening up massive space for Diogo Dalot. The ball's dropped back from Marcus Rashford into the feet of Casemiro, and now the space is absolutely massive for the switch of play. And this all comes tactically from how United are building. Not only are they drawing Ipswich Town onto one side, they're giving the attack a bit of width through the movement of the central midfielder and Christian Eriksen pulling wide, which consequently means Ipswich have shifted over. Bruno Fernandes is now getting picked up, which opens up massive space for the switch out to Diogo Dalot. I think when we're going to move on here, we've got to talk about players that maybe will be better suited to certain roles. Diogo Dalot is probably more going to be a right wing back than a left wing back. You think a natural left footer from this situation might just go wide and then look to play the ball either to Garnacho instantly or Ahmad on the far run. But Man United build, they recycle possession through Bruno Fernandes, and I just want you to look at Garnacho's timing. It's absolutely fantastic. As Bruno Fernandes receives the ball, he starts his move, stutters a little bit, waits for the perfect timing, runs behind the defence, and then for me is looking for the pass for Marcus Rashford that the goalkeeper saves really well. But that move from back to front with a little tactical tweak in the second half was another great example of Ruben Amorim's possession shape working in the Premier League. And I think the team will overall improve when they've got the right players in the right positions. That being a left-sided centre-back that's left-footed, that opens up a lot of angles to play. Also from a defensive position, I think Johnny Evans is far more suited to that centre-back role. There are times where they jumped at the wrong time, and Omari Hutchinson had space in between the lines. More on that later on. In terms of other players that obviously can facilitate that role, Luke Shaw I thought was brilliant when he came on. And for me, he is a left-sided centre-back in a back three. That ultimately is his best position. So having him in that area will allow United to play through. But of course, improving the build-up even further, seeing the likes of Ugarte and of course Kobbie Mainoo coming into the side will once again improve Manchester United's build-up. Think about Mainoo in that little area. You know, when the ball's played wide to Mazraoui, to allow that pass into midfield, I think is going to get the best out of Manchester United's build-up. Mainoo in those types of areas is fantastic because not only has he got the ability to pass, but he can also carry, which will open up even more passes. Think of it a little bit like Aston Villa, who have their wide players moving into the number 10 areas. You think in the Jacob Ramsey in a sense, or Morgan Rogers probably plays more of the Garnacho role. But having someone like Mainoo playing a bit like a Ramsey or a John McGinn could really allow Manchester United to create those faux counter-attacking situations where not only have you played through the opposition's press, you've dribbled through a little bit of pressure, and then the pace comes in of the two forwards plus the other attacking midfielder and the far side wing back. There is a lot of potential for Man United to play through the teams. But just on Mazraoui, for me, he is player of the season so far. He has been brilliant from a technical perspective. You're talking about passes in terms of progressing the play for Manchester United, but also carries out. There are times where he was nutmegging the Ipswich players, where he was dribbling through in Amorim's first game. And I think he is very, very well suited to play a number of different positions under the Portuguese tactician. And Ruben Amorim spoke about Mazraoui post-game. We don't have too many centre-backs, so we have to adapt some players. I thought Noussair Mazraoui did very well. He's so smart and so important for us. He can play anywhere, and that kind of player is crucial for our future. And when looking at the progression data in terms of carries and passes, we've got a top right Mazraoui in terms of his carries and passes more than any other player on the pitch progressing the play. And that ability for a player to carry out from the back is going to be vitally important. But I also think Mazraoui not only can be used in this more defensive position or centre-back position when building, but let's say when Lenny Yoro comes back into the team, Mazraoui easily could kick, the likes of Ahmad higher up the pitch, with Mazraoui maybe more as a right wing-back than a right centre-back, allowing Lenny Yoro to get into the team. That flexibility is going to be vitally important from Amorim. We saw that with Sporting. He had a player called Reese that would be played in left centre-back, in left wing-back, depending on the opposition. I think wing-backs are arguably the area where Amorim can tactically change the makeup of the side. Is it a winger? Is it a full-back? That changes how they attack, how they defend, which would give Man United the edge in the final third. The second thing we learn is Amorim is going to have to get rid of Erik ten Hag's automations, because they are still holding Man United back. That could be a full-back inverting into midfield. That could be them retaining possession and playing backwards versus being vertical, especially from those kind of full-back areas. But more importantly, it's where United are attacking. For years, United have been a very left-heavy team. That is, a lot of play coming down Man United's left flank. You think Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes when he joined the club are all very left-sided. But Manchester United need to start utilising their right side, because you could argue it's the most technical part of the pitch. When you're thinking the two best players, of course, for Manchester United in the opening game were Amad Diallo and Mazraoui. The balls need to start coming down that side. But in fact, if we look at Manchester United's attack, 50% of their attacks came down the left wing. When you think you're playing an unnatural left wing back, but also you're playing Johnny Evans at left centre back, that for me is a little bit of an issue versus going down the right-hand side and using the quality of Mazraoui and Ahmad. Ahmad that basically created opportunities every time he got the ball, but also Mazraoui, as we saw before, was the most progressive player on the pitch by a country mile. This is something United need to fix. And this is why it will take a bit of time for Amorim to succeed. And when we think about Liverpool in the Premier League this season, Arne Slot's Liverpool are still very much Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. A lot of their goals are very direct play or through counter pressure and turning the ball high. It takes time to move a team on from a coaching perspective. We've seen glimpses of Amorim's style, but we've also seen the players regress back to Ten Hagisms. Lack of intensity, poor pressing, a lack of recovery, a lack of speed on the counter-attack, especially with the wingers dropping back, but also when we're looking at too many crosses into the box, and defensive midfielders dropping into the defence. These are all things that Amorim really needs to fix, because we saw it in Amari Hutchinson's equaliser for Ipswich Town. So pick up the play with Ipswich building out from the back after a turnover. Manchester United at this point are set up reasonably well. I think the pressure could be put on. But I think one of the issues with Ten Hag's Manchester United is they'd arguably be, 5 seconds behind where they should be on the pitch in terms of pressing. As we can see, Rashford's putting pressure on the ball, Garnacho's dealing with the far side player, Bruno Fernandes is in a semi-good position to instantly put up pressure on Cameron Burgess, and Christian Eriksen looks like he's read the play right to jump on Morsey. As Ipswich move the ball wide to the centre-back dropping back, he looks to shift it inside. As you can see right there, Eriksen is jumping. This is the type of shape you expect to see under Ruben Amorim, but probably a little bit more narrow. The two attacking midfielders need to narrow up with one of the central midfielders jumping. From this position, it looks like Man United could win the ball high. Eriksen gets to the ball. It's a really poor touch from Morsey, but he gets himself turned. Once again, this is something that very much comes down to the player. You've basically done the hard yards. You've read the play perfectly. You've read that inside pass. You've jumped on it, but you've just been turned so simply. And the issue with this, as we saw over and over again with Erik ten Hag's Man United, is you're losing players from a defensive sense. 4 Manchester United players are committed. 4 of them are taken out of the game. This once again leaves massive space for the other defensive midfielder to cover. Of course, the benefits of playing a back 5 is that you've got 5 defenders versus 4 that we'd usually see from Manchester United. So you've got width in those defensive areas. But as the play kind of drops back, we're not seeing enough intensity off the ball to get back into a defensive shape, especially on this left wing. As Ipswich build through, Amari Hutchinson has so much space. Where is the left winger? We need more work rate from Man United's attackers. As the play's recycled out wide, it doesn't look too bad. Of course, United are back in their back five shape, but Alejandro Garnacho's too high up the pitch. For me, right now, he needs to be getting back into a left wing position. As Ipswich shift the ball inside, United are actually in a pretty good position once again. The one thing I'd say here, though, of course, Garnacho is far too high still, and he's not got back into that deeper area. If you imagine Garnacho just ahead of Diogo Dalot, you're closing off the space that Omari Hutchinson has got to receive the ball in. Of course, he receives defeat. Garnacho reacts far too late, tries to dive in, which opens up space. The ball's shipped out wide. One of the things here is the intensity once again. The wing-backs need to be super aggressive. That's what Sporting did under Amorim in Portugal. But what we see here is it's a little bit lackluster in a sense. The ball's shipped back inside. But again, another issue we mentioned there, Casemiro dropping back into the defensive line. This was a requirement for Erik ten Hag's defensive midfielders, but because you've got a back five, naturally what you'd actually want is Casemiro being higher, Johnny Evans moving over, less space between the outside centre-back and wing-back, and Casemiro to arguably the left of this shot of Omari Hutchinson, which would mean as soon as Hutchinson receives the ball, instead of it being Casemiro putting pressure on the back, it's Johnny Evans putting pressure on the back, and Casemiro is a brick wall in the area that Omari Hutchinson is turning into, which not only would stop the shot, but of course would stop the goal that Manchester United are conceding. There's too many things there that I think are very much dictated by what Erik ten Hag wanted United to do. The pressure, a little bit too slow. The defensive reaction, poor from Alejandro Garnacho. A lack of pressure on the winger when the ball is wide, but also Casemiro dropping too deep instead of allowing the outside centre-back to deal with that problem. All very, very poor, but all things Amorim's coaching will deal with. The third thing we learn is that Amorim needs to get to grips with the balance of his squad. There were too many players in positions that maybe they weren't ideal for. In a sense, we can start with wing-back. Diogo Dalot is far more suited to playing as a right wing-back than a left wing-back. So of course that'll come with a left footer coming into the team and playing with his natural foot. Diogo Dalot timed some runs off the ball really well, but at times he had to receive on his left, then move back to his right before the next action. Playing a natural left footer will give Man United an advantage on that left wing. But moving forward, you're looking at the characteristics of the outside centre-backs. Matsarawi, fantastic. Johnny Evans has got to be a centre-back in this system. There were at times that Omari Hutchinson was picking up really nice pockets of space in front of the Manchester United centre-back, and that shouldn't be Johnny's game. Johnny should just be sat at centre-back, allowing someone like a Martinez or in the near future, a Luke Shaw, jumping into that area and being very, very comfortable at jumping into that space. Of course, when we move forward in terms of players that maybe aren't ideal for the system and structure, got to look at central midfield. The energy from those two players is vitally, vitally important for Amorim. You think in the players we previously spoke out, they're all ball winners or box-to-box midfielders. I think, no offence to Christian Eriksen and Casemiro, they're not as suited to the system as well as a Ugarte and a Kobbie Mainoo. Again, ideal players for the role and system. We've got to remember this is right at the start of Amorim's tenure. He needs to understand his players and what they do on match day, and having the energy in midfield is going to be vitally important. The attacking midfield line, I think there's still some question marks there, but I'd argue Fernandes and Garnacho are perfectly fine there, and I'd say that Marcus Rashford might not be suited to this role under Amorim. I think he took his goals supremely well, but I think there were times where he could have linked the play a little bit better or attacked the channels a bit better. That being said, he could easily play in a deeper role, which again would mean a natural number 9 like Erasmus Højlund is far more suited to that 9 position. And there's no surprise that Manchester United look far better with Luke Shaw and Ugarte on the pitch against Ipswich. Prior to their arrival on the pitch, United had 52% possession and were outshot by Ipswich 9-6. After the arrival of both players, Luke Shaw coming on as a left centre-back and Ugarte into central midfield, United saw 70% of the ball and had twice as many shots as Ipswich Town. And we saw Man United be much better on the ball with those two players in the lineup. In fact, United had a 45-second piece of possession before this moment where they could have won the game. We're going to pick up the play with Luke Shaw in possession. Ugarte is going to move over and open himself up. The big thing, United have been super patient, and we can see how they've dragged the majority of Ipswich Town's players over to the left-hand side of the pitch, opening up space for the switch to Amad Diallo. Not only did Amad absolutely excel in a defensive sense, but going forward created two big moments for Manchester United. The first was an assist, and this bit of play could have been a goal. And the way that Amad Diallo brought the ball down on his chest, took a brilliant first touch to kill it, and then he drove inside, beat Davis before feinting another Ipswich player, but unfortunately the shot blocked by Burgess. But that was about a minute of Manchester United possession, being patient, waiting for the switch of play, the 1v1 situation for Amad Diallo to completely exploit. So to conclude, there's a lot of good things that Manchester United are doing already under Ruben Amorim. The possession style is one thing that I've really enjoyed. There's definitely some Ten Hagisms that need to be put to bed and thrown out like a bad cold, but also going forward, Manchester United need to find the right balance on the pitch. Of course, get into the comments below, what did you make of Ruben Amorim's first game in charge? I've been Statman Dave, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.